Tonight, a warning from health officials in Quebec. Measles are back, and it's starting to spread.
It's a serious situation. It's a serious disease.
Unexplained cases near Montreal and Toronto. Who is most at risk and what you should know before you travel. Paying tribute to Brian Mulroney. His final days with his family.
The wonderful thing is that all 4 of the children were able to be here in time to see their father.
And the political legacy he leaves behind. The Body Shop closes 1/3 of its Canadian stores.
That's a shame. It is a terrible shame.
Once a staple in malls, why it's now struggling to stay afloat.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemensing.
Measles, a highly contagious and potentially dangerous illness, may be spreading in parts of Canada. Tonight, Quebec health officials are warning we could be seeing the start of community transmission. The virus can be deadly, especially in unvaccinated children. And measles vaccination rates have been falling, leaving the country more vulnerable. At least 9 cases have been reported so far, most linked to travel. And with spring break ahead, health officials worry those could multiply. But as Lauren Pelly explains, also raising concern are at least 2 cases where the source hasn't been identified.
A warning in Quebec after an unexplained case of measles.
We think that it's a beginning of a transmission inside the community.
Laval health officials say an unvaccinated individual somehow caught the virus even though they hadn't traveled. They went on to visit a school, store, a clinic, and a hospital, all while highly contagious.
We are kind of worried about the evolution of measles inside our community.
Those fears follow reports of a man in his 30s living north of Toronto who also caught the virus but doesn't know how.
The unique thing about this case, and rather unfortunate thing, is that this case does not have any travel history or any history of exposure.
He had 2 doses of the measles vaccine and only mild illness.
We do know that people who are vaccinated can get a mild form of measles, and we think that they're much less likely to transmit it onwards. So that's certainly good news here.
There are only a handful of measles cases in Canada right now, but healthcare teams are bracing for more infections as global travel heats up.
South of the border, 41 cases in total have been identified across more than a dozen states, including an outbreak in Florida, a hotspot for March break vacations. This Montreal pediatric infectious disease specialist says high vaccination rates in Canada should keep the disease at bay, but
there can be certain communities or pockets of areas where the coverage rates are not high enough to stop secondary transmission.
Canada's top doctor told us Canadians should make sure their measles vaccinations are up to date.
If in doubt, I think 1 dose, getting a dose of vaccine prior to travel would be an important consideration.
And multiple experts agreed curbing the spread of measles is crucial given the risks. It can lead to serious complications, including blindness, brain swelling, pneumonia, even death. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Isaac Bogosh, infectious disease specialist. And Dr. Bogosh, how concerned should we be in Canada about the possibility of a measles outbreak?
We have to remain vigilant, and it's really important that we maintain very high levels of vaccination. We're seeing a significant rise in global measles cases. We know there's lots of travel, international travel, and people landing in Canada. And of course, we have measles cases here in Canada, both brought in from abroad, but also locally acquired. So we have to really make sure our vaccine rates are well above 90% to prevent onward transmission and subsequent cases in Canada.
And speaking of travel, we're at that time of year where a lot of Canadians are thinking about going away for spring break. What advice do you have for them in terms of measles?
It's extremely important that people are up to date on their vaccines. Obviously, kids are getting 2 doses of a vaccine. Remember, in Canada, that 2nd dose was added in 1996. So there's a lot of people that have 1 dose of a vaccine that could benefit from a 2nd dose if they're traveling internationally, especially to an area of high measles transmission.
I've heard there should be at least a 4-week gap between the shot and immunity kicking in. What happens if somebody's leaving the country in 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks is just fine, and even if it's less than 2 weeks, it's certainly better to get the shot than to not.
All right, get the shot. Dr. Bogosh, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
The Supreme Court of Canada has issued a landmark privacy decision ruling police must get a warrant to obtain an IP address. Privacy advocates are celebrating, but as Kate McKenna shows us, investigators say it'll make their jobs much more difficult.
As Canadians' lives and communication increasingly move online, the Supreme Court issued one of its strongest rulings on internet privacy yet. Police will need warrants to get IP addresses, a unique number assigned to every device on a network. Even though an IP address doesn't directly identify people, the court found it is a crucial link between an internet user and their online activity, as well as the first digital breadcrumb that can lead the state on a trail of an individual's internet activity.
It's incredibly important when it comes to our understanding of how the court envisions privacy in the online environment.
This case is about an Albertan man accused of making fraudulent purchases online. Calgary police were able to obtain his IP address without a warrant. Now the court has ordered a new trial for him. But the head of Alberta's Internet Child Exploitation Unit says this ruling will make its investigations much harder. He says getting IP addresses is often the first step in finding online predators.
We're seeing an immediate impact already where telecoms providers have already denied us information about the IP address.
But civil liberty groups are calling this a win.
The evidence showed, and I think it's common sense, that IP addresses are so important and connected to our online activity, and the idea that the police could get them whenever they want without any kind of judicial oversight, again, was just a frankly outrageous idea.
Civil liberties advocates say the reach of this ruling will go much farther than this individual case, with the possibility of affecting Canadian law and enforcement for decades. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Planning for former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney's state funeral is now underway after his death yesterday at the age of 84. Mulroney led this country for 9 years, from 1984 to 1993. Rafi Boudjikanian with how he's being remembered on Parliament Hill and beyond.
On Parliament Hill, flags are lowered to half-mast and a book of condolences set out to mark the death of a Canadian political giant.
The big issues that he tackled are still in place today, whether it's NAFTA, free trade, the things that he did on the world stage we all know about.
Brian Mulroney died Thursday in Florida. He was 84.
Brian had a fall and had to go to the hospital and passed away yesterday. Late in the afternoon. So the wonderful thing is that all four of the children were able to be here in time to see their father.
That includes his daughter Caroline, a cabinet minister in the Ontario government. Premier Doug Ford remembers Mulroney fondly.
You know, it's so quick to answer the phone when you call him, and he'd tell you the best stories, but he'd lift you up like you. By the time I was finished talking to him, I was ready to go out door knocking.
Politicians of all stripes are paying tribute to Mulroney, who left his mark on this country.
Well, there's certainly going to be many examples of disagreements that many New Democrats had with some of the policies. But today is the day to reflect on his contributions. And I can say with a lot of confidence he did have significant contributions to Canada.
There are certainly things that people disagreed with from one party to the next, but the idea of service and devotion to country ran through everything he did.
But his legacy is also complicated, from bringing in the GST to an unsuccessful attempt at getting Quebec to sign on to the Constitution, dividing Conservatives.
His record of national unity is a complex one, because ultimately the failure of Meach and Charlottetown did lead to the rise of both the Bloc Québécois, the Reform Party. But again, he demonstrated his largeness as a personality. He didn't spend the rest of his life in bitterness.
Justin Trudeau says Canadians will have their own opportunity to publicly mourn Mulroney. The government is working with his family to arrange a state funeral soon. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Quebec was important to Brian Mulroney, not just politically, but personally. He was from there, courted its voters, and tried hard to repair its divisions with the rest of Canada. Alison Northcott shows us his legacy in that province.
I think he'll be remembered very fondly.
Brian Mulroney's family has been coming to this neighborhood diner for years.
When he would come in, you could tell this person had a command of the room. And it was in a positive way. He had a very sort of nice smile.
For some customers, even brief encounters with the former Prime Minister were memorable.
He just
chatted, just the sort of stuff, you know, how are you, nice day.
Born in Baie-Comeau,
We're going to build a brand new Canada.
Mulroney became a large political figure in Quebec, trying to unify the country by appealing to Quebecers.
He believed sincerely that recognition of Quebec's distinctiveness, Quebec's specificity within Canada was not an obstacle to Canada's unity, but rather an added value to the country.
But Mulroney's attempts to have that recognized in the Constitution through the Meech Lake and Charlottetown Accords ultimately failed.
People at that time thought that they were rejected, thought that there was no place for Quebec within the country.
Quebec will slowly but surely and calmly, hopefully, move towards independence.
I don't think very much of Prime Minister Mulroney. I think he's the author of the destruction of Canada.
Lucien Bouchard was a close friend of Mulroney's and a cabinet minister in his government. But after the first failed accord, he split from his longtime friend and went on to form the sovereigntist Bloc Québécois. Their friendship was fractured.
The political feuds was such that it was very difficult. Our respective ego, we were young, full of ambitions and determinations.
It took decades, but Bouchard says the two had recently made amends.
We had reconciled, but very late, too late, so many years lost for our friendship.
Bouchard says he'll remember Mulroney as a leader who always looked forward and wasn't afraid to take huge political risks. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
World leaders are also sharing condolences. U.S. President Joe Biden saying he saw firsthand Mulroney's commitment to the friendship between our two nations, as well as his abiding love for Canada. And from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Brian Mulroney's government was the first in the Western Hemisphere to recognize Ukraine's independence in 1991. He called the relationship a true friendship. President Biden says that the U.S. will step up efforts to get aid into Gaza by land, sea, and air.
In the coming days, we're going to join with our friends in Jordan and others in providing airdrops of additional food and supplies.
Airdrops from Jordan and France have already begun, but the UN says it's not enough, only being done because deliveries by land are too dangerous. The Hamas-run health ministry now says 115 people died at an aid convoy yesterday, with the head of one hospital saying 80% of the injuries were caused by gunfire. Israel's military denied eyewitness accounts that it attacked the crowd, showing this edited video and blaming deaths on a stampeding mob. Today, France and Germany joined the U.S. in calling for a full inquiry into the incident. This as Israel prepares for an assault on the city of Rafah in southern Gaza. More than 1 million Gazans are sheltering there, including 600,000 kids. According to UNICEF, at least 17,000 of them are unaccompanied, either orphaned or separated from their parents because of the war. We're about to hear from some of those children. Stories a freelancer working inside Gaza gathered exclusively for CBC News. Chris Brown now on what they're living with and what they've lost.
There are few moments of fun these days for 12-year-old Alma. An Israeli airstrike in central Gaza in December killed 145 people, including her mother, father, and 4 siblings. She was the lone survivor. Alma told a videographer working for CBC News, "I want to go to my grandmother's, but we didn't because I remind her of what happened to my mom and dad." She adds, "I wish I had died with them." Alma is one of 17,000 children that UNICEF estimates have been orphaned or separated from their parents because of the war. Her emotional state is not good, said her uncle. She cries when she remembers her brothers and sisters and her mother and her father. It's hard to calm her down. The creation of so many fractured childhoods and parentless children has emerged as one of the most harrowing humanitarian challenges of the war. UNICEF's Tess Ingram is just back from spending a week near Rafah.
What's been happening in the Gaza Strip is daily incidences of repeated trauma that children aren't able to flee from. And that sort of impact is something that we don't yet fully understand.
9-year-old Yahya is receiving treatment for the wounds he suffered when Israeli bombs destroyed his home 2 weeks ago. His parents and 3 older siblings were all killed. I wish I could see my mother's face again, he said. I look on her phone, but there aren't any pictures. I can't see it. He told our videographer he wants to come to Canada, where he has an uncle, but leaving Gaza for anyone right now is very difficult. Dr. Khalil Al-Dagran has been treating Yahya and countless other children. There's been a huge spread of emotional problems, such as depression, anxiety, and isolation, he said. UNICEF says the impact of having so many children losing parents is difficult to know, but the trauma will be long-lasting. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was buried today at a cemetery in Moscow.
I was dreaming of him to become our president.
How thousands of supporters risked arrest to pay their respects. Next. Plus, a dramatic rescue from a truck dangling off a bridge in Kentucky, the moment the driver was pulled to safety. Plus, the baby came early, and so did the wedding.
You may kiss the bride.
A couple's impromptu hospital nuptials. We're back in 2. This dramatic scene in Kentucky ending with a rescue of the truck's driver. After smashing into a guardrail, she was trapped dangling over a river. Firefighter had to rappel down to the stranded driver, hook her into a safety harness, then the crew above lifted them both to safety. Not clear yet what caused the crash. A powerful winter storm is hammering Northern California tonight, prompting a rare warning for life-threatening blizzard conditions in some mountain areas. Meteorologists forecast some spots could see more than 3.5 meters of snow. That's more than 11 feet over the weekend, with winds gusting up to 160 kilometers an hour. And Iqaluit cleaning up after a massive blizzard tore through the city, shutting down schools for 2 days and halting essential services like water delivery and garbage pickup. That is expected to resume tomorrow. In the meantime, residents being asked to stay off the roads. Thousands of mourners gathered in Moscow today to say goodbye to Alexei Navalny. Russia's imprisoned opposition leader died in an Arctic penal colony last month. As Brian Mulroney explains, even attending the funeral was a form of protest.
Even this was a simple act of resistance. The Kremlin called Alexei Navalny's funeral unauthorized, but a few thousand turned out in spite of the risk. At times they chanted "No war" and "Free Russia."
I was dreaming of him to become our president, really, and it's a huge tragedy for me and for my people.
Inside the church, a much smaller group. Navalny's parents were there, but his wife and children couldn't be. The risk of them returning and being arrested like Navalny was too great. Among the crowd outside, Canada's ambassador to Russia, Sarah Taylor, who described Navalny as a voice of democracy. The Kremlin said Navalny died of natural causes. Few here believe that.
So they demonstrate to the whole world, we do what we want to do.
He was very brave man.
Boris Nadezhdin was recently banned from running in the presidential election. But unlike most major opposition figures, he's not in jail or in exile and was able to take part in the service today.
Me and Alexei Navalny, we have practically the same understanding of future of Russia. But now its situation is very bad for oppositional activity.
A few dozen people were detained, and there likely could be more arrests in the days ahead. As Navalny's coffin was lowered into the ground, the song "My Way" by Frank Sinatra was played, along with the theme from Terminator 2, his favorite film. As the police looked on, the crowd demanded to be let in to say their goodbyes, and eventually officers relented. People streamed in to leave flowers, to mourn a man and his dream for a different Russia. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
An iconic cosmetics retailer is closing nearly a third of its Canadian stores.
It just sucks to think that it's not going to be around for much longer.
Why the Body Shop is filing for bankruptcy. Plus, 2 years ago, the Bank of Canada began hiking interest rates. But now the conversation is changing.
They can make things worse if they don't reverse course right now.
Peter Armstrong breaks down when cuts could begin. And next, as Russia's war on Ukraine drags on, is it time for negotiations?
The uncomfortable truth is that they probably won't be able to break through. The West collectively needs a plan B.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
Well, she's had a smile on her face throughout. She'll have a bigger one on her face there. What a way to finish.
That is the moment Sarah Mitton made history, becoming Canada's first shot put world champion. Competing at the World Athletics Indoor Championship in Glasgow today, the Nova Scotian not only secured gold, she also broke her own national record twice. Mitton's final throw an incredible 20 meters and 22 centimeters. American fashion expert and influencer Iris Apfel has died. Her quirky style made her a social media darling in recent years, but she got her start in the 80s and 90s as a textile expert and an interior designer. Her big, round, black-rimmed glasses became her signature. That eccentric style was the subject of museum exhibits, a documentary film, and the star of several big brand fashion campaigns. Iris Apfel was 102. The Body Shop has been part of Canada's retail landscape for decades, but the store, known for its fragrant, ethically sourced bath products, has fallen on hard times, announcing today that it's shutting nearly a third of its stores in this country. Anis Hadari takes a closer look at what went wrong.
There are fond memories at this Body Shop, one of 33 set to close in Canada.
I love the Body Shop products and the Body Shop itself.
I used to come here all the time when I was a kid, like less now, but it just sucks to think that it's not going to be around for much longer.
Well, that's a shame. That is a shame that they're doing that. I guess I just have to look to see what stores are going to stay open.
Nearly 1/3 of the Body Shop's Canadian outlets and all American stores are shutting down, just weeks after the Body Shop International declared insolvency in the UK. At the time, the company told CBC News Canadian stores wouldn't close. That's changed. The Body Shop has seen more competitors selling socially or environmentally responsible brands. Consumer experts say it's an advantage lost.
The ethical beauty and skincare market, they've really seen significant increase in brands that promote similar values. So what was once unique, selling proposition for the Body Shop is now a common claim among many brands.
The Body Shop also says online sales will stop. Their website already offline with a label saying it'll be back, something industry watchers say is important.
If the Body Shop doesn't, compete with other retailers that are doing business in the country and lags on its e-commerce, there is a possibility that the business could eventually fail and shut down in Canada altogether.
The company hasn't said how many jobs will be lost. It's already stopped accepting gift cards, and all sales are now final at the Body Shop. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Calgary.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. The tough question that will shape your bottom line. When should interest rates start to fall?
We will have that discussion.
But first, what's behind the calls for Ukraine to negotiate an end to the war with Russia?
What I'm arguing for is realism.
The Ukrainians don't understand why that suggestion should be made.
We explore the impact of wavering Western support and take a nuanced look at how the war is unfolding.
It is also true that the Ukrainians are making progress.
This is The Breakdown. Terrence McKenna shows us who's calling for negotiations and why neither side may actually want to.
The debate about U.S. support for Ukraine started in earnest when Ukraine failed in its much-heralded counteroffensive last year, despite massive numbers of modern tanks provided by Western countries, despite ferocious artillery fire and modern rockets. Ukraine was practically unable to budge the Russian occupying forces. The Russians had built multiple lines of tank traps and landmines to slow up the Ukrainian advance, and then were able to pick off any Ukrainian tank that tried to make it through. Just as when Russia tried to take Kyiv in 2022, anytime the Ukrainians gathered tanks together to prepare an assault, they would be vulnerable to incoming fire from the other side. Ukraine's then top general Valery Zaluzhny admitted in an interview last fall that the war had reached a stalemate. Zaluzhny also spoke privately then to former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor.
He was describing how the battlefield is not what it used to be. He said that the tank, armored vehicles, the tank is dead, is obsolete, he said. And why? Because he can see everything that's going on the Russian side about when the tanks mass get together, and the Russians can see the same thing on the Ukrainian side. Both sides can bring fire, accurate precision fire on those tanks, which means neither side is able to break through. And that's the situation that we have today.
While the tank battle has stalled, Russian missile fire still rains down every day on Ukrainian cities like Kharkiv, just 38 kilometers from the Russian border. Maria Mesentseva represents Kharkiv in the Ukrainian parliament.
I can't tell that you get used to it. It's a terrible feeling in the bottom of your stomach. You can't get used to it. You understand that you are in danger and your life can stop any second and you're not in control of it.
Ukraine's stalled war effort has caused dissension among its leadership. General Zaluzhny used to be bosom buddies with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, but Zaluzhny's frank admissions that the war had reached a stalemate apparently upset Zelensky. A few weeks ago, Zelensky dismissed his top general. Perhaps Zelensky sensed that the admission of a stalemate would bring about second thoughts about supporting Ukraine from its principal benefactor, the United States. And that is exactly what is happening. In Washington now, you hear voices calling for a negotiated end to the conflict. Among those calling for a ceasefire is former Obama administration foreign policy official Charles Kupchan.
The uncomfortable truth is that they probably won't be able to break through Russian defenses either now or for the foreseeable future. And as a consequence, Russia is probably going to keep hold of a major chunk of eastern Ukraine, about 18% of the country. And the West collectively needs a plan B. What now for Ukraine?
The Ukrainians don't understand why that suggestion should be made. They are fighting for their existence, and they know that in addition, they are fighting for the security of Europe. And as long as they're willing to fight for that existence, and indeed for the principles that they stand up for, which are similar to ours, they don't see why outsiders should tell them that they need to negotiate with the Russians.
Supporters of Ukraine say that the Western countries have always been a day late and a dollar short in giving the weapons Ukraine needs to defend itself. That applies to the F-16 fighter aircraft that have still not arrived, and the longer-range attack-end missiles that could hit far behind Russian lines.
I think the morale here is that we haven't received everything we've asked for. And I remember the slogan of President Zelensky. He said, "I need ammunition, not a ride." So this is referring to what has been asked. And this is not just, simple begging for things.
Now there is an argument that Ukraine can't win whatever weapons they have.
What I'm arguing for is realism. I'm telling Ukraine that right now its priority is to emerge as a secure, stable, prosperous democracy on the 82% of the country that it controls, rather than expend available resources on attempting to seize the rest of the country in a fight that they are unlikely to win.
On that argument is neither side's ready. Neither side, neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are ready to negotiate. And the Russians, Putin, Lavrov, they're very clear that the only way they negotiate is if the Ukrainians surrender. If they surrender a fifth of their territory. Ukrainians are not going to do that. The Russians are not ready to negotiate otherwise. So the flaw is neither side's ready to negotiate.
The Ukrainians say they have tried to negotiate with Russia in March 2022 in Minsk, but that Vladimir Putin treated them with contempt.
So why would Russia not repeat the same strategy? So I think here we shouldn't rely on something that Putin would promise. And I don't think he's prepared for any negotiations.
There is a widespread view that Vladimir Putin would treat any ceasefire as a brief pause, that he would go on eventually to attack other countries, even if they are members of NATO.
I think the chances of a Russian attack against a NATO country are quite low. And that's simply because Putin is having a very hard time defeating Ukraine alone. The last thing that Russia wants to do right now is fight Ukraine plus 32 NATO members. And as a consequence, I think a deliberate attack on NATO territory would be a fundamental strategic mistake that I don't think Putin is likely to commit.
So that's what they said about him not attacking Ukraine. Fact is, that's what Putin said about not attacking, and Lavrov said about not attacking Ukraine. He said, we will never do that. Of course we won't do that. And of course, they did.
The Ukrainians point out that they are still very much in this fight. Every day they are using inexpensive drones to knock out scores of Russian tanks.
I think we are pioneering in the area of drones. We take $300 kit, which is like a small black sort of spider, and then it manages to target $3 million tank successfully.
Ukraine is also making a big impact at sea. They have deployed an armada of small sea drones that are much like remodeled jet skis. Packs of those drones attack larger Russian naval vessels. The Russians desperately shoot at them to try to blow them up, but there are often too many to stop. Eventually, they reach their targets and detonate a payload of explosives. The Ukrainians have destroyed about 1/3 of the fabled Russian Black Sea Fleet, 25 of 74 ships. Russian ships have had to evacuate their home port of Sevastopol in Crimea.
When you look at what's going on the Black Sea, for example, Ukrainians shooting down Russian aircraft, this is not the story of a stalemate. So it is true that the lines haven't changed, but it is also true that the Ukrainians are making progress.
This is an enormously costly war, not just to Russians and Ukrainians, but to the world. Major food shortages, major impact on energy supply and energy prices. This is a conflict that I think does need to end sooner rather than later.
While this debate plays out, it is reflected in the tug of war going on now in the U.S. Congress, where the Senate has passed a massive Ukrainian assistance package, while it is being held up by right-wing Republicans in the House of Representatives, at the behest of Donald Trump.
If the House of Representatives doesn't pass that bill, that will demonstrate that the Americans are not reliable allies, that we don't have the stomach, the staying power to support our allies. And other nations, other dictators, other strong nations looking to invade their neighbors will notice.
Failure to support Ukraine at this critical moment will never be forgotten.
Playing on everyone's mind is the likelihood that U.S. support for Ukraine will never be as high as it has been in recent years under President Biden, and that the prospect of a second Trump presidency would be a disaster for Ukraine. Trump has indicated he would cut off military assistance, which is of course exactly what Vladimir Putin wants.
When French President Emmanuel Macron recently suggested that troops from NATO countries could be sent to fight in Ukraine, Putin responded by once again threatening to use nuclear weapons in the war. And his demeanor seems to suggest that, as you heard in Terence McKenna's story, he's not interested in negotiations anytime soon. Coming up, Canadians under the weight of high interest rates are wondering, when will the Bank of Canada start cutting? Peter Armstrong breaks that down. Plus,
we said our vows, said I do, and then he was born about 9 hours later.
the hospital wedding and the perfect gift that followed it. That's in our moment. Canada's economy at a critical crossroads after 2 years of higher interest rates.
They had to raise rates. People were freaked.
The big question now is when to start cutting those rates. The big danger is getting it wrong.
The risk is much bigger to us than it would be to the Americans or the Europeans.
Peter Armstrong breaks down what it could all mean for jobs, prices, and the cost of renewing your mortgage.
In a lot of ways, it feels like we're walking along the edge of something. 2 years since the Bank of Canada started hiking interest rates, but before the central bank starts cutting them again. All of us waiting in limbo, asking the same questions. When the Bank of Canada started hiking interest rates in 2022, its goal was to get inflation under control without sending the economy careening into a ditch. Today, inflation's back below 3%, and so far at least, the economy's avoided a recession.
Did the Bank of Canada accomplish the goals it had at the outset?
Yes, inflationary expectations are well anchored.
Right. That's Jim Thorne, an economist, investor, and outspoken critic of the Bank of Canada. And even he says the central bank did what it had to.
They had to raise rates. People were freaked.
And raise rates they did.
Inflation is too high. It is higher than we expected, and it's going to be elevated for longer than we previously thought.
As interest rates shot up, inflation began to decelerate. Households were squeezed, so they spent less.
We're trying to balance the risks of under and over tightening.
As supply and demand came back into balance, inflation worked its way back to the bank's target of 1 to 3%.
If the economy evolves broadly in line with the projection we published today, I expect future discussions will be about how long we maintain the policy rate at 5%.
But progress has been painful. Damage has been done. Unemployed people are lining up looking for jobs. The economy has barely grown at all since last April. People across the country are feeling squeezed, overwhelmed, and pessimistic about the future. They're not convinced the Bank of Canada is working to make their lives better. More than 2 million Canadians are set to renew their mortgage at much higher rates over the next 2 years. But Macklem won't say when they can expect to see a break.
It's premature to start discussing lowering interest rates, but as inflation comes down, yes, we will have that discussion.
That's small comfort to anyone lumbering under the weight of a variable rate mortgage, or someone who had their rent jacked up by a landlord trying to cover increased borrowing costs. But if you strip out shelter costs, largely driven by higher interest rates, inflation's already at or below the central bank's target. But economists say Macklem's still worried that inflation could reaccelerate.
If you start lowering too soon and inflation starts to pick back up, then again, you run this risk of inflation getting out of hand and then destabilizing those expectations.
But there's no question, pressure is ramping up. People want the bank to cut rates, and the risk of leaving rates this high is surging as well. Did the Bank of Canada make things worse or better?
They can make things worse if they don't reverse course right now.
Home sales have fallen, construction is down, and it generally takes about 18 months for interest rate changes to work their way into the economy. So the full impact of all those rate hikes hasn't hit the economy yet.
The question you're not asking.
Thorne says Canada is notoriously awash in debt. Governments, households, businesses, and even the banks, he says, are overexposed, and leaving rates too high for too long can have devastating consequences.
We're not going to miss this one. In fact, we're going to be ground zero. And the confidence that people have because of what happened in 2008 is totally misplaced,
Raising rates was easy. Navigating whatever comes next, that's the tricky part. Canada's economy stands on a razor's edge. On one side stands a soft landing and some kind of turnaround later this year. Wobble the other way, though, and there's a very real risk that things get worse, not better. And that is the risk facing the Bank of Canada right now.
And the Bank of Canada will be center stage next week with its latest interest rate announcement. Peter Armstrong tells us it's almost unanimously expected to leave rates unchanged, but experts will be watching for some hint about when borrowing costs may come down. Tune in on Wednesday for the latest on that. Joshua Liendo has been breaking records and breaking through as a black athlete swimming for Canada. I spoke with him as he prepares to compete for Olympic gold in Paris, and here's an excerpt.
I try to stay in the moment and control what I can right now, because there's a lot of steps leading up to going to Olympic Games.
What do you want to achieve in Paris?
I definitely want to get myself in an individual final, and then from there at the Olympics, anything can happen in a final.
Why do you think there's so few people of color in elite swimming?
Well, obviously you get the typical kind of stereotype, right? And then also I think that kind of just puts it in your head that, oh, I don't want to swim, like swimming's not for us, or that kind of mentality. And if it's something that you love, I think you should pursue it.
Our full conversation's coming up Sunday on The National. But next, a wedding ceremony in the unlikeliest of places.
Nurses made a veil of gauze and also got a bouquet of flowers together.
The impromptu I-dos in our moment. That is Sarah and Brandon Perry on their wedding day. The venue, the maternity ward of a local hospital. The dress was a bedsheet and the veil was made of hospital gauze. The Missouri couple planned to say I do just after Valentine's Day, but before they could tie the knot, Sarah went into labor at the hospital. Quick-thinking patients and staff organized a makeshift wedding ceremony for the couple. Getting hitched in the hospital is our moment.
Mr. and Mrs. Perry, and you may kiss the bride.
The last-minute decision-making is pretty common being with Sarah over the past few years. I'm always just along for the ride.
We originally planned on getting married on Friday, February 16th, and Tuesday morning when I woke up, my water had broken. And we went to the hospital and they confirmed that I was in labor.
Pregnancy swells the fingers.
Our nurse came in and was like, hey, I have this crazy idea. There's someone down the hall that would be willing to do the ceremony for you guys, but you guys have like 30 minutes.
He's like, I'm an ordained minister if they want to get married here at the hospital.
Nurses, doctors, and marketing people. We're here today to celebrate not only the love and commitment of Sarah and Brandon, but also the birth of their child.
I think she was 7 minutes in between contractions at that time.
I thought it'd be funny to make a toga out of the white bed sheet on the hospital bed, and so I put together a dress, and while I was doing that, the nurses made a veil of gauze and also got a bouquet of flowers together.
Do you take Brandon to be your lawfully wedded husband?
We said our vows, said I do, and then he was born about 9 hours later.
So did you hear they said that someone down the hallway could officiate at the wedding? You saw him there. That's because his wife was in labor in a different room, and Sarah and Brandon are planning to have a more conventional wedding ceremony. They'd like to have a destination wedding, maybe in Mexico, though as destinations go, the place where they had their actual wedding was pretty cool. That is The National for March 1st. Join me Sunday for Cross Country Checkup on CBC Radio and CBC News Network, and later that night back here for The National. Have a great Saturday.